All right, we are live. Matt Cave doing some gaming today. Not in the cave today, upstairs in the den, because, well, the 4K TV is up here, so I wanted to play a little bit of the PS5. We're going to play some Battlefront 2 and talk about, we're going to talk about the sequel trilogy, because I haven't posted anything about my thoughts on the sequel trilogy, and it's definitely a sore subject for a lot of people, but I'm just going to go through my thoughts and my experience with the three of those films and what I thought of them as they came out. But while we're doing that, we're going to play a little bit of Battlefront. And I think what I'm going to do, I'll stick with the era we're talking about, and I'll go with the sequel trilogy era. So let's go start with the Resistance here. We'll do some co-op missions and see how we do. I'm probably going to die a lot, but we'll see what happens. So, oh boy, what can I say about the sequel trilogy? Obviously, it divided the fan base more than anything ever has. We experienced as fans division with the prequels initially, but it wasn't like this. It was a very different type of divide. There were so many things that fans were still able to agree on and have constructive conversations about it. I know a lot of people, the big thing with the prequels, a lot of people hated midichlorians. Okay, that's fine. I was all right with it. I think it did take away some of the mystery when it comes to the Force, but at the end of the day, I could get past that. I was fine with that. I could live with that. I'm not a hater of the midichlorians. I think it was actually kind of cool that they referenced it in The Mandalorian. They simply said M count, but we knew what they were talking about. So that was pretty cool, though, that they even did that in the first place. So I grew up with the original trilogy, and then the prequels coming out was, honestly, it was a incredible dream come true. I never thought anything like that would ever happen, and the fact that I got to experience those films in the theater was incredible. You know, I was born in '82, so I grew up with the original trilogy, but I missed out on seeing those in the theaters. Luckily, we got the special editions done. Again, that split some fans, but at the end of the day, it's still the original trilogy, and I got to see those films in the theaters. Experience them a little different than everybody else, but that was how I got to see the originals in the theater, and I was very thankful for that. The prequels coming out was just amazing. I remember waiting literally all day long, me and a bunch of friends waiting all day long for the trailer of Phantom Menace to download in QuickTime so that we could watch it together, and it literally took all day. We had a dial-up modem, and it just that's just the way things were. Things weren't instant like they are now. So I obviously I love the original trilogy, and overall I love the prequels. I really enjoy them a lot, especially Phantom Menace. That movie gets so much hate, but I really like the Phantom Menace, and Jar Jar does not bother me like he bothers a lot of people. I think he's pretty funny, and showing these films to my kids, they think he's funny too, and that's who he was meant for. Jar Jar was meant for the kids, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So, fast forward many years later, and it gets announced that Disney has purchased Lucasfilm, and the first thing they're going to do is make episodes 7, 8, and 9 happen. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Disney is something I grew up with. My family watches Disney films. I grew up with so much of it. I mean, in the back right here, there's literally a painting of an artist rendering of the Disney castle, and it's just, I was so excited. I was so excited that Disney did that, because they already were doing so many great things with the Marvel franchises. It was just incredible. It's like you have this amazing MCU being built up, and now we're going to get the same treatment for Star Wars, something that I love even more than the MCU. That's insane. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. And eventually, we got a trailer for what would be Episode 7 and called The Force Awakens. That teaser trailer was incredible. That hyped me up for Star Wars. I couldn't believe it was back, and to see a new chapter in this franchise and see characters we've never met before, it just was unbelievable. The practical effects that were shown in the trailer, it was J.J. Abrams taking the reins there. I was a big fan of Lost. I was a big fan of projects that he's worked on, and I thought his style would work really well with the Star Wars franchise. So everything was just pure excitement. Linked up with some friends, we got our tickets for Force Awakens. We went and saw Episode 7, and so I went with two friends of mine. So the three of us went, and all three of us love Star Wars, and we all have different views of movies in general. We always see movies differently, which is great. We have kind of debates, we have conversations about what we think the direction of the movie should have gone, what we liked, what we didn't like. And it's great. I love having conversations like that about the differences and the way we saw these movies. And it's something that I think is rare because a lot of people jump right to just arguing and having really heated arguments about things like this. And I was like, that's just silly. At the end of the day, look, it's movies. They're there for entertainment. It has a huge fan base that I've been a part of since I was a small child. And I think we can all agree that we love Star Wars. And there's many things, even the haters of the sequel trilogy, there are things that they point out that they do like in it. And I'm the same. There are a lot of things I like in the sequel trilogy. But there are more things that I don't like. And that's the biggest problem with the sequel trilogy for me, is that it steered so far from being what we know as Star Wars that it left such a bad taste in everybody's mouth with this. Even the people who say they love the sequels, they know there's something wrong about it. There's something that doesn't quite fit. And it's okay to love these movies. There's nothing wrong with loving these movies. There are tons of movies that I love that people overwhelmingly consider bad. I mean, I literally watched a movie called Rubber, which was about a tire that goes around and murders people. I mean, and I like that movie. I think that movie is fantastic. But most people wouldn't agree with that. Oh, we got Kyle Lorette coming up on me right here. He's going to take me out. I'm not doing very well at this game at all. I'm barely paying attention to what I'm doing. Not to say that I'm normally much better at this, but still.
Ready yourselves.
So, Episode 7, The Force Awakens, I was amped up. I was psyched. I couldn't believe a new Star Wars was coming out. And we went and saw this movie and came out of it. And I, overall, really enjoyed the film. I think it did what it needed to do to get that hype going again. I think that it hit a lot of nostalgic points, which was actually one of the things that a lot of people didn't like. They called the film just a rehash of A New Hope, which in a lot of ways it was incredibly similar to A New Hope. But I feel like kind of needed to be. I feel like after all those years and getting people back into Star Wars and bringing in new fans and showing them something familiar to the old ones, I think you needed to have that. And the more I've watched Force Awakens, the more it feels like its own film, like not being a total rehash of Episode 4. I think there's a lot that makes it its own movie. So we get new characters, which I was psyched to see. Getting old characters back was awesome. I think that was great. They keep talking about Luke throughout the movie. We see Han Solo and Chewbacca. We see Princess Leia. But the biggest thing that stood out when I left that film was that why didn't these characters all meet up? Why didn't we see Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewie together? Why didn't that happen? So it just seemed weird. I was like, you know what? All right, we got 2 more movies. This is going to be a trilogy. We got 2 more movies. Let's see what they do with it. Force Awakens introduced us to Rey, to Finn, to Poe, to BB-8. Look, I love BB-8. I think BB-8 is pretty awesome. And here's the thing. I like Rey. I like Finn. I like Poe. I think they are very good characters that have a ton of potential that was never realized. And that is unfortunately due to just poor writing, in my opinion. I don't think it was thought out properly. And it's been admitted over these years that there was no plan. Nothing was truly thought out. It wasn't... That's why these movies don't fit together well. But overall, I really like The Force Awakens, and I still do. When I rewatch that movie, I really enjoy that film. But there's things that just don't quite add up the right way. For example, Rey is ridiculously overpowered. I think every fan of Star Wars can agree on that, whether you like these films or not. She is insanely overpowered with no proper explanation as to why. But when Force Awakens was the only one out at the time, there were so many theories going around, which was fun. The fans were able to come up with these ideas of which direction to go. Is she related to someone? Is she Luke's daughter? Is she Princess Leia's daughter? Who is she to everyone else? And it led to such fun conversations. I think that was one of the biggest highlights that came from that film, and I think it's still one of the best things that film produced, was all these theories. The sad thing is that the theories ended up being far better and more creative than what we ended up actually getting. And that's just sad. I so desperately... I didn't want to just like these movies. I wanted to love these movies. I wanted to love these movies like I loved the other 6. Prequels included the original trilogy. Empire Strikes Back is my favorite one of the entire saga. Revenge of the Sith is a close second. This is what I wanted. I wanted to love these movies. And I don't. And it's for several reasons.
I'm ready for what's next.
Here we go. We got Rey now. I've got enough points here. I'm Rey. So Daisy Ridley, I think, did an amazing job.
It's him, Kylo Ren.
She did, I think, everything she could do with a poorly written character. I think that she is a very good actress. I've enjoyed her in other projects. I think that she deserved so much more than she got with this film. I think her character could have been absolutely amazing. And same goes for Finn, for Poe. These characters were really good characters, in my opinion. I think they could have been absolutely great, but they were poorly written. Especially John Boyega's character. Finn, he was set up in Force Awakens like he could have been Force sensitive. He was set, I mean, think about it. The idea of a stormtrooper turning away from the dark, turning away from, in this point, well, instead of being the Empire, it was the First Order. He turns away from the First Order and goes towards the Resistance. A stormtrooper becoming a good guy. We had never had that. At least in the films. Maybe we had that in the old expanded universe at some point, but I don't know. I didn't see it. But holy crap! How amazing is that plot line? Even the teaser trailer starts with him popping up. Oh my god, it's a stormtrooper, his helmet's off and everything. We see him in the desert. Something happened. We didn't know what was going on when we saw that trailer. Clearly he was a stormtrooper, though. It piqued our interest. It was something that we had never seen before. And that's why I had so much hope for this movie. And throughout the whole movie, they keep talking about Luke. I'm like, when is he going to be there? When is he going to be there? Luke is who we all wanted to see. And we get to the end of the film, and I think it was the best sequence in the entire movie. The setting, everything. We have Rey going up these ancient stairs on this island in this temple. And the music playing at that time, it was amazing. And then we see this cloaked character standing on the edge, looking off in the distance. We all knew at that point, we knew who it was, but still there was that moment of like, is that Luke? And he turns around, he's got the beard, he's got this whole Obi-Wan Kenobi vibe, this Alec Guinness Obi-Wan Kenobi vibe. She extends out the lightsaber, the iconic lightsaber that when you see that one, you know where it's been, you know who has held that lightsaber. And she extends this out to Luke Skywalker. He takes his hood off. We get this panning shot around them on this gorgeous island. They were really there. This was not CG. This was real. And the movie ends. Oh my god, I just wanted so much more at that point. The film it had me, the movie. There were things it just wasn't sitting right, but it had me. And then that moment on that island, and Rey handing that lightsaber towards Luke, I couldn't wait for the next movie. The wait for episode 8 for The Last Jedi was, oh my god, there's so many theories happening at that point. I was like, oh my god, we're gonna see Rey being trained by Luke Skywalker. We're gonna see what Luke has been through. We're going to see flashbacks. We're going to see, because we get that little glimpse of Luke cloaked, and he puts his hand on R2, and the temple is burning. There was so much emotion in that scene. And I couldn't wait. I wanted to see what happened there, because that was all built up by what happened with another character with so much potential, which was Ben Solo, Kylo Ren. I mean, this character, let me pull him up here. Look at this. I mean, this guy, very cool. That lightsaber itself was just so awesome. Again, something new to see. That was another thing that these films had to do. You can't just rely on everything old. You have to have the nostalgia, but you can't completely rely on that. You need to give the audience something new also. And it did. Kylo Ren, I think, is a really cool character that develops as he goes, except just not in a productive way. It's again a poorly written character that's put on the screen that is clearly meant to give memories of Darth Vader and the things we've seen before. And Adam Driver, I think, did an amazing job with a poorly written character. He had so much potential. He's the son of Leia and Han. He's obviously Force sensitive. They set up the plot of Snoke manipulating him and pulling him to the dark side, and this was after Luke had taken him on reluctantly had taken him on to train him, and Luke went and started his own Jedi Academy. We've seen that before in Expanded Universe, especially the video games. Jedi Outcast, amazing game, absolutely amazing game, and we see Luke's Academy there. That's what we should have seen in these films. We should have had more focus on Luke. And that tease at the end of Force Awakens, wow, what a tease. Oh my god, what a tease. I just, oh my god, hold on a second. As excited as I was for Episode 7, I was even more excited for Episode 8. I couldn't wait. And when they released the title, The Last Jedi, I was like, that's Luke. That is Luke they're talking about. They even said it in Force Awakens. Snoke refers to Luke as the Last Jedi. And he's like, we can't let him come back. He's going to ruin all of our plans and do all this. There was so much emphasis on the dark side keeping Luke away. The next movie should have been Luke training this next generation. And if we would have gotten that training, Rey being so naturally powerful would start to build in the right direction, because now she's going to gain control. She's going to get teachings from a Jedi who, even Luke's training itself was very odd. It wasn't like the training we've seen in the prequels. It wasn't Jedi at their peak. The Jedi were hunted down and all but extinct. And now Luke has taken what he's learned from the ghost of Obi-Wan, from Yoda, and anything we've seen him in the expanded universe. Luke had been through so much, but we've skipped ahead now all these years. So it was the responsibility of this film to fill in that gap. It was their responsibility to at least give some story behind why Luke went to this island, what was going on there. Was he looking to rebuild again? What was happening after that point when Ben turned to the dark side? We needed that to happen, and it didn't. The Last Jedi came out. I was so excited going into that movie, going into the theater. I could feel the excitement in the audience. Everyone was at this peak of being a Star Wars fan. Everyone was waiting to see this character again, to have him speak. He didn't even speak in The Force Awakens. What was going to happen at that moment? The Last Jedi starts. We get, kind of a tail end of Force Awakens with Finn, and he was hurt at the end of that movie, and we got Poe going in, and we have this whole battle sequence in space, which has its issues in itself. And that was all happening, and I was just blinded by excitement. I didn't really latch on to the mistakes that opening was making at that point, because I was just in so much anticipating that next moment. Where is Luke and Rey? We need that moment. We need to pick up where we left off. And literally, Finn is what segues us over. Where is Rey? He says it, but where is Rey? And then we're back. We're back on the island at that exact moment we left off. I could barely contain myself. We're all in the theater. Everyone is doing their best to be quiet. Everyone's paying attention. There was this height of excitement that you could literally feel in the air. You could feel it. And we're at that moment. Rey handing that lightsaber over to Luke. We see his robotic hand. He takes the lightsaber. Luke is now holding the lightsaber he has not held since Empire Strikes Back, when it fell in Cloud City, when his hand was cut off. He has not held this lightsaber since then. And now, what is he going to say? What is he going to say to her? Is he going to ignite the lightsaber? What is going to happen at this moment? Luke takes that iconic lightsaber that was once held by his father, by Anakin, holds the lightsaber, looks at Rey with this almost look of disgust, and throws the lightsaber over his shoulder and walks away. All right. I described to you what it was like in the theater, waiting for this moment, the return of Luke, and everyone. We were at this, I'm telling you, the peak of excitement with the anticipation. It was at its ultimate height. When he threw that lightsaber over his shoulder, the entire atmosphere changed. It went from this ultimate high to the ultimate low. I couldn't believe the transition from peak joy to just utter despair. How does that happen? There was no middle ground. There was no middle. Here, all the way here, down here. Instantly, in that moment. How does that happen? How does this character we have on screen, how does Luke Skywalker throw a Jedi's weapon away like it's a piece of garbage? At that point, sitting there watching the rest of this movie, I just had a pit in my stomach. I couldn't grasp where this was going to go. It's like, you know what, we're at the very beginning of this movie. I gotta give this a chance. I have to give it a chance. It's Star Wars. Luke just did the absolute worst possible thing he could have ever done, ever. Okay, but we have a whole lot of movie left, so where are we going? Instead of getting real training to happen for Rey, we start to get a tease of it. We do get a tease. Luke is talking about why he left. He's talking about the Jedi must die. He's just this grumpy hermit. He's not Luke anymore. This is not Luke. Rey's trying to convince him to come back and help the Resistance. He's very he's resistant in his own. He's resisting joining the Resistance. The hero of the original trilogy, the New Hope himself, is not willing to help. We start to get a tease of him. He finally agrees reluctantly to try to train her. And we start to get this glimpse of it, and then Rey starts to lean towards the dark side, and it scares the crap out of Luke. And that's where he pretty much gives up at that point, and we get nothing. We get no real training. Rey goes off and tries to basically train herself. They force some comedy into these moments, and it falls flat. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of humor in these movies, but don't take these dramatic moments and immediately ruin the dramatic moment with a comedy moment that just lands flat. It doesn't make sense for any film. I don't care whether it's Star Wars or not. Don't do that. Fit the comedy in the right place. The Last Jedi does a lot of things wrong. Instead of having the new group of characters together and working with each other, they send, like Finn, for example, again, a poorly written character, gets sent off with the character Rose. Rose, I don't hate her character. A lot of people hate her character. I don't hate her character. I hate what they did with her character. She should not have been the one that went off with Finn. It should have been Poe and Finn going on that mission. Maz tells them that they need to get this, to meet up with this master code breaker. And she starts describing this person. The first character that came to mind for me when she starts describing them was Lando. Why the hell wasn't Lando in episode 8? Maz flat out describes Lando to Finn and Rose and Poe. Said, you gotta find him. He'll be able to help you break into what you need to break into and to help fight against the First Order. Okay, great. I start getting hope again. Wow, we're gonna see Lando. And we transition into the sequence of the film that I think most people consider the worst point in the film. I don't think the casino planet was as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. It's very unnecessary simply because of how it's used. I really liked seeing a new location. I liked seeing citizens of different planets and how they act and how they're handling their life around what's going on. You got to remember that all these events that happened in the prequels, in the originals, and now in the sequels, these are kind of isolated events. The rest of the galaxy is not at front stage to see all of this playing out. They hear things through their versions of the news, they hear things through rumor, but it's not like they're experiencing it. So here's a whole bunch of people at a casino, a lot of rich, snobby characters all around, and I like that it showed this part of it. There was even a moment where you realize, these rich bureaucrats, these citizens, these politicians, because they have money, are funding things for not only I'm about to say the Emperor, not only for the First Order, but they also fund for the Resistance. Also, they're making weapons for them. And you got to understand, there are politics behind this. There's lives that people are living while these events are happening. And to see that was really cool. I think that was a good idea. It shouldn't have been Finn and Rose doing this. It should have been Poe and Finn doing this. Go on this mission. And they have to go find this master codebreaker, who ended up being nobody. Literally nobody. It was some dude at the roulette table or whatever he was at, and had one line of dialogue, and that was it. They never even got to him. They got taken away by guards because they parked their ship on the beach. Great, fantastic. Okay, now we're going to casino prison. And they meet Benicio del Toro's character, who, again, I like his character, but why was he there? Why was this not Lando? Okay, well, whatever. He had some character. He had like that stutter and everything. His character was there. He was a cool, interesting character with a lot of potential, but he wasn't used well. He just he wasn't utilized. He wasn't written well. So we get a throwaway character instead of getting Lando Calrissian, who it should have been. And they move on and do what they have to do and help free the racing horse dog things that are there. Those are cool creatures. I thought they were cool looking. Rose made a big speech about how this is how the galaxy is and people don't see this, and that I think was good. I think that was useful for the story to see that side of it, but I don't know, it was just placed wrong. I don't know. It just wasn't written well. And we get through all that. It's a long sequence. It kind of gets boring at a point, and then we're finally back to the most boring writing I've probably ever seen. And I understand why this sequence goes the way it does, but it just shouldn't have been. So the other side of it is the Resistance basically trying to run away from the First Order until they run out of gas. They're in space. It's a slow chase across space. And the First Order has no way of catching up to the other ships because of their size. And they're saying that the other ships are lighter, but they're in space. So I think once you get enough momentum in space, isn't it supposed to be almost unstoppable? Like, it didn't make sense. It was treated like large ships in the ocean. And I get what they were trying to do. They treat it, because even how you see them flying the ships and all these people in control and everything like that, it's very similar to handling a large ship on the ocean. And that's what I believe they were going for. But it didn't work for Star Wars. It doesn't work that way. To have this slow chase was very boring. I mean, literally, it was like, really, we're going to do this until the Resistance runs out of gas? That was your plot line? That's where we're going with this? We can't find a way to write Lando into the movie where he should have been, but you know what? We're going to have the Resistance try to get to a gas station. That'll keep people really, really intrigued. I don't get it. I don't get why they would do that. But anyways, the other storyline going on in this film that again had a lot of potential was this link between Rey and Kylo Ren, between her and Ben. They had this potential. They had this story being built up where they have this link in the Force, and I've never seen anything like that in the films, but I did see that in the Knights of the Old Republic games. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. They're taking something from old expanded universe and they're going to try to bring it into the film. And I think that's a really cool idea. I think they could have worked with that a lot better. I mean, there's even a moment where they're reaching out to each other and they're about to literally touch hands from across. They're not in the same place. They're seeing each other through the Force, and Luke busts in and stops this from happening. He's concerned about Rey going to the dark side and what he experienced with Ben, and we get this reveal that, oh god, I just it almost makes me sick to have to say this out loud. We get this reveal that Luke tried to murder Ben. We get a flashback, and it's being told from from a certain point of view. That's just to interrupt for a second. Interrupt myself. From a certain point of view, I think is the most important line of dialogue spoken in the entire saga. I just want to throw that out there. So we get this told from the point of view of Ben and what he experienced just waking up as a young Padawan, and his master is there standing over him with a lightsaber. He's got the green lightsaber, which was cool. That was very cool. And he's going to kill Ben in his sleep. Luke Skywalker was going to kill a Padawan in his sleep. Someone wrote that and said, I'm going to put that in the movie. And then it got put in the movie. Yeah. So that's what we got. It gets told a little differently later, but it's still the same Same idea. Luke's talking about how he's like, at that moment he realized it was wrong and tried to stop, but then Ben lost control and all that. But no, don't do that. Don't do that. So we get Luke throwing a lightsaber over his shoulder, throws it away, and then we get Luke going to murder his Padawan. Luke's not really doing so great for this movie here. And Rey finally gives up on him and leaves. And goes to try to save Ben because she feels there is light in him, that's a theme that has happened throughout Star Wars. That even though characters are on the dark side, there's still light. There is still the possibility of coming back. Ben was still in there, and she felt she could save him. That, I think, was a good move in this movie. I think that was a good idea. And she goes to try to get him back, and Snoke is there, and we get this whole throne room reminiscent scene. And we're thinking we're about to get all this revealed information about Snoke, this mysterious character. Why is he there? How did he turn Ben to the dark side? He's basically like set up as the new emperor. Where did he come from? There was even a theory. I actually loved this theory. There was a theory that Snoke was actually the youngling from Revenge of the Sith that walks up to Anakin and asks Anakin, what are we going to do? And there was a theory that he survived, but he was all messed up from what Anakin did to him, and that he became Snoke. I still wish that happened. That would have been an incredible backstory for Snoke. So we think we're about to get all of this reveal. We're at this moment in the film where questions should be answered at this moment. Huge, huge moment. Nothing gets answered at this moment, and instead, Snoke is killed. In a very cool way. Don't get me wrong. That moment was very cool, and one of the coolest things I've ever seen in Star Wars. One of the coolest things I've ever seen in movies. But for story purposes, it was story suicide. We just killed off a character we were all waiting to learn about, and now he's gone. So we have Ben. He's now taking over as Supreme Leader, and he's our new big baddie, except Rey's trying to turn him to the light, and he's trying to turn Rey to the dark. And they have this connection with each other. And look, I still think the connection is cool. It gets worse when we get into the next film, but I think the idea was still a cool idea and had a lot of potential. Ben obviously doesn't turn to the light, and then, we end up where the hell did that go? The Resistance runs out of gas, and then they're able to get to a planet that their new leader. Oh God! How did I not talk about this already? Oh, Princess Leia. Oh God. Princess Leia, or General Leia, I should say at this point. Her character. So she's on one of the ships, and Kylo Ren is going after them, and he's feeling his mother through the Force, and she senses him, and he's about to kill her. And we're literally looking at his hand on the trigger, and he releases. We see a glimpse of Ben, and he stops. But the order was already out there for the other fighter pilots to go after this target, so they fire instead. And in that area of the ship, not only Leia was there, but Admiral Akbar was there. He had a quick little moment of dialogue somewhere at that point, but then he's killed off screen. The whole place explodes, and she goes flying off into space. And there is this beautiful moment where we see her. She's like this ice forming around her because she's out in space, nothing on her. You know, she's eyes are closed and she's floating off, and there's this beautiful music happening. And at this point, we're like, oh my god, they just killed off Leia, and you know they already had killed off Han in Force Awakens, and Kylo killed him. You know, it was a huge, crazy moment. I, I, a lot of people hated that, but it. I think that was all right. I think that was good for the character of Kylo Ren. I think this was a huge thing to have to happen, but now he resisted from killing his mother, but she ends up getting killed anyway, or killed, because moments later, she wakes up in space and starts to fly through space back towards the ship where it where she was previously on. I guess part of it that didn't explode. We got somebody commenting. So you're going through all the characters in the sequels and saying how they could have done better in their role. Yeah, pretty much. It's the thing about these movies is that, and I said it before, I wanted to love these movies. And there are things that I do like in all three of the sequel movies, but overall, they were underdeveloped and took a lot of potential with these characters that just, they could have been so much more and they could have been so much better. A lot of people hate the flying Leia in space moment. It was awkward seeing it. I get why they did it. It was showing that she had Force abilities. We all knew that Leia was Force sensitive and that somewhere along the way she probably had training, probably from Luke. And to see that happen, I get what was happening. I get it. She was using the Force. The Force saved her. Her instincts kicked in, and that's what saved her. It was just weird looking, and it didn't go over very well with everybody, but I understand what they were going for, and I get it. So I kind of forgive them for that because I didn't want Leia to die. The saddest thing is that in real life, we really did lose. We lost Carrie Fisher. She died after this movie came out, and that put them in a very strange place of how we continue into the next film, into the ninth installment. We basically get no answers to any of the questions set up in Force Awakens. Maz even says this is a story for another time when talking about the lightsaber and how she got it. We never get that story. It never happens. We got another comment. I don't really hate every single thing, but I don't like them because they could have been better, but they cramped everything into 3 movies. Yeah, it's like, especially 9. 9, I remember when episode 9 was about to come out, and what I really hoped for was like a long movie. Like, I don't care, make it 3.5 hours, make it 4 hours long. Close out the saga with quality, with just really give us something amazing. And that was so difficult to do because, and I hate this term that was linked to that movie, this phrase damage control. Damage control was linked to this movie and spoken so much every time you talked about the movie. I hated that. Why? Why did there have to be damage control? I get what they were trying to do with The Last Jedi. They were trying to give us something new, trying to give us something different, and not rehash everything that has happened before. And I think that they were honestly brave for trying to do that, but don't go so far in that direction with such a well-established franchise. There was so much in the expanded universe to pull from that you didn't have to just make up something brand new. When Disney bought Lucasfilm, they called everything from the expanded universe and everything outside of it, they called it Legends. Which I thought that when that initially happened, that was the first real kind of I don't know, slap in the face to the fans. They just, why take all of that well-established lore and story and just throw it away? I mean, yeah, look at this. Okay, so in the chat we have, I hate Master the Mind Jedi second try. I don't care if you love the sequels or hate them. I don't care where you fall in that category. What we can all agree on is that Rey is ridiculously overpowered, she is untrained, and she can just do things. She can just do everything. That's not how you... All right, if it was going from the standpoint of empowering a female character, which I'm all for, that's great. I was so excited to see that our lead was a female lead. That's amazing. We're going to get a female Jedi. We're going to see... I think it's so cool. We've had so many heroes that are female. And, this is not like breaking new ground. And that's how it was felt like it was being treated. Like, this is the first time we're ever getting a female hero. That's not how things have gone, and that's not how things are. But I was so psyched. I was like, this is so cool. She's going to be awesome. And they just gave her all of the powers because. Just because. No training, no nothing. Now, look back at the original trilogy. There is an argument to be said there where Luke, we didn't see a whole lot of his training, but it's implied though, like it's there, it's built in that we know he's being trained. And Empire Strikes Back is an interesting case, especially timeline-wise, because it's hard to pinpoint as just a general audience of where in time everything is taking place. Empire Strikes Back is broken up in an interesting way. You watch a movie and you think, okay, everything's happening in order. Everything, when you go from this character into another scene, things are happening maybe at the same time, but it's not. They are separated in time. There's even the fact that when Luke is having the visions of Han and Leia being hurt and things like that, he's viewing the future, and Vader actually forces that to happen. So that's where you see the time gap. Oh yeah, Empire Strikes Back is my favorite one of the whole saga. I agree, it's one of the best Star Wars films, if not the best one. I said earlier, Revenge of the Sith is a very close second for me. I loved Revenge of the Sith. But Empire Strikes Back will always be my favorite. I love that movie so much. And there's an interesting thing that happens there, and I think a lot of people miss it, is that when Han is being tortured by Vader, and he even says, he's like, they didn't even ask me any questions. Vader put him in pain so that Luke would sense it. And it worked, because then Luke, while he's training, has this vision of the future. So now we know the training is happening in the past and the Cloud City sequence is in the future, until eventually we catch up and Luke goes to Cloud City just like Vader wanted him to do. Later, Vader manipulated that whole situation. That was his plan. Get Luke there so that he can try to turn him to the dark side. And it's things like that's storytelling, man. You build these things up the right way. You give development to characters. You give reasons why a character is motivated to do something. When it came to the sequel trilogy characters, their motivation was, oh, because I do this because I'm a good guy. That guy's doing that stuff because he's the bad guy. Oh, really? That's it? That's your whole motivation? Like, it's not about just light and dark. You have to have development in your characters. And again, these characters had so much potential. I wanted Finn to be incredible. Okay, so, all right, Last Jedi is a freaking mess. I don't care if you love the film or not. You're more than welcome to love it, but look, it's a mess. It tried to go in so many different directions and never fulfilled anything. And it didn't link to Force Awakens at all. Force Awakens, I still think, is a good film. It set up questions that we wanted to be answered, and none of them get answered. Well, okay, we get Rey's background story answered, but that was, again, just not planned. It wasn't planned. That was just shoved in there, trying to get fan service. Again, damage control. Damage control. Episode 9 was all about damage control. Last Jedi should have been the Empire Strikes Back of the sequel trilogy. It should have been this major moment in the middle of this story that answers questions but builds new ones that were going to get answered in the next installment. Not throw everything away from The Force Awakens. I still hate the fact that we never got the story that Maz said is for another time. How the hell did she get that lightsaber? I know there's things going on in the comics that start to kind of explain that, or maybe even flat out explained it. I don't have those comics. I've seen things from it. I've seen videos about them, and that's great. I'm glad that stories are continuing in that way, but not every fan is reading all of that. You want to make sure that the films, the core of all of this, is telling the story that it should be telling, so that any audience can watch these films and know what's going on. I love expanded universe stuff. It's great. It's fantastic. And I love that it's there in video games, in novels, in comic books, everything. It's there. And that's great. And that's what the sequels should have pulled from to tell these stories, because there were tons of stories that continued after Return of the Jedi and were great. They were fantastic. So, Last Jedi happens. I'm now at a point in my fandom that I don't know how to feel after coming out of that theater. I wanted so much to love this film, and there were a lot of things that I really did like. It was in terms of just being a movie, it's beautiful. The special effects are amazing. The cinematography, everything about it being a movie is absolutely fantastic. Everything about it being Star Wars, is a mess. And then all we hear after that film comes out is about how do we fix The Last Jedi. And, oh God, so now we have, what was it, 2 years? 2.5 years before Episode 9? The trailer comes out, and we get the title, we get Rise of Skywalker. What a bold move. What a bold decision to title that film Rise of Skywalker. That was the first thing we got from our Disney Star Wars as we're trying to bring the fans we lost back. And I did hear that rumor. Apparently Disney is going to let George Lucas remake the sequels. I've heard that rumor. I don't know how legit it is. I even said this, even before rumors of that came out, I said this to my friends. I said, this was after 9 was out and the sequel trilogy was all done. I said, I'm at a point as a fan where I wouldn't even mind it if they did redo the sequels. Just do it full CG. Do a full CG movie where you can literally do anything. You can have character likenesses. You can do this. Get voice actors. Have any living actors reprise their roles, as many as you can get for it. And then just have really good voice actors come in and do a remake. And here it is. Here's the sequels. Here's 7, 8, and 9, a different point of view, a different version. I would accept it at that point. At this point, I would accept it. I would never have accepted that before all of this. That was just, but now it caused such divide in our fans that it really, it put us as fans at a point where we're just desperate for anything good. So Rise of Skywalker, after you've just crapped on the name Skywalker in the previous film, I was like, all right, well, is this going to be Luke comes around and we're gonna see something happen? But look, at this point, Luke is dead. They killed him off. Being a hologram, Force hologram. I don't know what to call that. What a weird power. It was almost like it was almost like a video game type power. And I'll elaborate more on that with Rise of Skywalker, because they totally went video game force powers in Rise of Skywalker. Luke basically tired himself out and died in The Last Jedi. So now it's like, crap. Now Luke is dead. Now you call the next movie Rise of Skywalker, but you've killed off Luke Skywalker. Yes, we can see him as a Force ghost. That's well established. There's Force ghosts, and if anyone's going to be a Force ghost, Luke Skywalker is going to be. But he shouldn't have been killed at this point. I don't mind the character being killed if he was killed off for the purposes of story development, and if that's where it led to, and it was done well, I'm okay with that. I understand we were going to a new generation. That's fine. But respect what came before. If Luke died in Episode 9, I think it would have made a lot more sense. But we have Rise of Skywalker. We had a really good teaser trailer that came out. I'm not going to lie. The trailer for Rise of Skywalker gave me hope again. I was very cautious. It gave me hope again, though. And it brought us into this situation where we could theorize about who's going to be in this film and what direction everyone's going to go again. And they revealed right away that Palpatine was back. So now it was like, where do we go from here? Palpatine's still alive somehow? look, we saw him fall down a hole, right? We saw him fall down a giant hole. How many times have we seen... Luke fell down a giant hole. He lived. So, okay, he could have survived it. That's fine. I'm fine with that. Just write it well. That whole idea of... when I saw that trailer, I was like, oh my god, Palpatine has been behind this the whole time. Which kind of wasted Snoke even more. You know, then there was theories like, oh, the Emperor is Snoke, Palpatine is him, he's, I don't know. It got so confusing with all the different possibilities and theories. It just started to not make sense at all. But, you know, I still had hope. I was like, all right, what are we going to do with this? The trailer was really well done. And look, you could make any movie look great with editing. It's just part of the filmmaking process, you know. You can take what you have and make it work. It's what we do. You know what? I'm just noticing something here. Is there a flock of some kind of creatures? Look at this. We got chickens. Are these space chickens? Oh, hi.
Rey is here. Now the
Rey
Force
is
is
here.
really with us.
Fantastic. We were just talking about her. Alright. So, I'm sorry, I got distracted. I'm actually loading up the game here, and I'm noticing things I never saw in the game before. So, Rise of Skywalker, full of damage control, and they're trying to go with major fan service to try to make this work. And they even shove Lando into the film. He gets forced in there. Look, I'm so happy to have Lando back. I'm so happy that he was there, but it was kind of a too little too late sort of thing. We have the opening crawl, which tells us that somehow, okay, the Emperor is alive, and he broadcast that to like everyone across the galaxy. He just announced it. I'm alive. The opening crawl starts with the dead speak. It says the dead speak. I'm not even really playing this game right now. I'm just looking around right now at this point. I like the Millennium Falcon's out there. That's awesome. So why would he do that? Why reveal yourself like that? You've just told all of your enemies that you're around, and now they're going to be looking for you. Why do that? So again, poor writing. It just doesn't make sense. Now we're still left with all kinds of questions. Still, we don't know Rey's background. We don't know what's going on with this link. Oh, well, we do know now. Snoke claims that he made the link between Kylo Ren and Rey. Except Snoke is dead now, and they're still linked. So, okay, it wasn't Snoke. I guess it's the Emperor that did it? This was his ultimate plan? And the Resistance is getting back, you know, they're bringing people back together, they're getting they're filling up their team and building up again to try to fight the First Order, and they know the Emperor's around, so now they just want to fight him. Kylo Ren is on a mission of his own to go find out how he could be the ultimate power in the universe, and he goes off and finds a holocron. They don't even call it a holocron. I don't know why. They call it a wayfinder. So basically he finds a force-powered map to tell him exactly where the Emperor is. You know what? Just saying this out loud just made me realize that the sequel trilogy is all about maps, telling you where to go. The Force Awakens was all about a map that leads right to where Luke is. Why the hell did that exist? He wanted to leave everything behind and go into hiding, yet there's a map that tells you exactly where he went? Okay, that's weird. and now there's a map to tell you exactly where the Emperor has been this whole time and what he's doing. So that's weird. And Kylo Ren gets there with no trouble at all. It's really rushed. You know, we see this opening sequence of out in these like woods, which actually turns out that was Mustafar. Believe it or not, he was on Mustafar from Revenge of the Sith, and we don't even make any mention of that. I mean, Vader literally had a castle there, and there's no mention of this. No, nothing. We don't get to see it. Anyways, it's a cool sequence. He's brutalizing these guys that are trying to come at him. And then he just goes and he opens up a rock, and there's this map. So we didn't know really why he was looking for it. We didn't know how he figured out that it was on Mustafar. We don't even mention that it's Mustafar. He just gets it. And that's what this whole movie was. It was just rushing from point to point to point, never explaining why they were doing it or how they got there. We did get to at least see Rey, Finn, and Poe together. Chewie's with them, BB-8's there. We even get a new droid named Theo. He was pretty cool. I thought he was cute. But they're finally on missions together. But Rey's still like, oh, we did actually get to see her start to train. So now apparently Leia is training her, and she's running like an obstacle course. And they do imply that she's been doing this for a while now. So there was time between Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. We see time that has passed. And, well, we don't see it. We just see that they tell us that time has passed and she's been training. Okay, great. And we know she took the Jedi tech, so she's been utilizing those to try to learn. So she's been learning the Force from books and from Leia, apparently. She calls her master. She calls Leia her master. Except there's never been, other than Leia flying through space to survive being killed, that's the only time we've seen her use the Force. But now she's Rey's master. She's teaching her the ways of the Jedi. And also Rey is using the Jedi texts that she saved from being destroyed in the last movie. So, I mean, it's like learning karate from a book. Yeah, you're gonna learn something, but it's not the same as having a teacher and having real experience with learning that skill. But apparently, Leia was, she was well versed enough in the Force that she could be her master. I get it, it's limited. There was like no Jedi left. There's no there's only so much you could do with it, but still, it makes no sense. Then we see Rey going out on the missions with Poe and Finn, and she's again overpowered ridiculously. Oh, okay, so you're saying how did she get the Jedi text because Yoda burnt them? So it was a very quick moment that happens in The Last Jedi. Rey, apparently, she stole the books from that tree, from where they were. She did take them. There's a moment at the end of Last Jedi where Finn is searching the ship, like frantically looking for something, and he opens a drawer, and the books are in there. The Jedi texts are in that drawer. So we see that they survived. And Yoda even says to Luke that Rey has everything she needs at this point to learn. Again, another wasted sequence. We get to see Yoda again, and he's there with Luke, and there's probably one of the better moments in The Last Jedi, but still, again, poorly written. But she did save them. So the book survived, and then we see she has all of them. She's been flipping through. Like, she was like, oh, they're talking about, oh, God, I'm trying to remember, what was the planet that Palpatine was hiding on? Exegol, I think it was called. She's like, oh, they say it, and she's like, I remember, and then she goes and flips through the book, and she's like, it's right here in, chapter 4, all about Exegol and the secret place that Palpatine lives. Look, I mean, it's just, and she knew about the Wayfinder and all that, and then, again, rushed, slapped together so that they can just get from point A to point B, and just keep moving in that sequence. And Palpatine being back could have been done well, but it just wasn't. It just was so forced in there. Again, it was for damage control. It was for fan service. And they should never have reached that point. You should never have to try to fix a movie
Ray just joined us.
because of how badly done the previous one was. I would have liked Rise of Skywalker better if they ignored Episode 8 and continued the stories mentioned and teased in Force Awakens. Just go from there. But they had to somehow tell us Rey's background in some way, because that was such a huge thing. They couldn't just ignore it. So we actually see a sequence in the movie where Rey is trying to save Chewbacca, and she's trying to pull a ship down from the sky using the Force, which, look, that was cool. That was very cool. We've seen that in video games. We see that in The Force Unleashed. Starkiller pulls a Star Destroyer out of the sky using the Force. One of the coolest parts of the game. Again, a video game moment. And we're seeing Rey fighting, trying to pull the ship down, and then she shoots it with lightning. She suddenly has Force Lightning. And the only reason she has Force Lightning is to try to make sure that they are linking the fact that she is a Palpatine. Everyone wanted her to be a Skywalker. Everyone wanted to be, or maybe even Leia's, daughter at one point. But obviously that changed, and there was no way she could be at that point. They had their son Ben Solo, which again I think is a good idea. But everyone's thinking, oh, she's maybe Mara Jade was in this somewhere, and Luke had a daughter, and all this. But no, she's a Palpatine, and she gets Force Lightning abilities just because. So she gets a video game power, not that, obviously Force Lightning's in the movies and everything, but the way she utilizes it, and she's so powerful with it, it's like a video game. She even gets Force Healing, again, a video game power. Not once did we ever see a Jedi heal someone using the Force. What we have seen, though, are both Jedi and Sith kind of checking how someone is doing when they were hurt to see if they're okay. We saw Obi-Wan do this to Luke in A New Hope, and we saw Palpatine do this to Anakin at the end of Revenge of the Sith. He goes down, puts his hand on his forehead, kind of getting a sense of where they're at, and maybe even in some way helping to kind of sustain them a little bit. But it wasn't that they were healing them. At least it was never established like that. So are we meant to think that's what they were doing? Because Rey straight up heals a giant snake.
Rey is here. Now the Force is
They're
really
going to be
close.
eaten by a giant snake in a tunnel, and the snake has a big cut on him. And Rey walks right up to this thing, I guess kind of communicating via the Force somehow or whatever, and the thing does not attack her, and instead she walks right up to him, puts her hand on him, and the cut closes and it heals. That's a video game power. And in a video game, that is forgivable because it's a game. Obviously, you gotta have some way of whatever. You can have med kits, you can have healing abilities, you can have whatever. That's fine. It's a video game, make it fun. That's all cool. But don't do that in the movie. And then here's how sneaky Disney is. So The Mandalorian, fantastic show. Absolutely love it. The episode that aired right before The Rise of Skywalker came out featured Grogu using the healing ability. He heals Carl Weathers' character. Same way Rey did. Go up, touch, boom, the cut, the blaster burn, whatever it was, is healed. Like, fully healed. closed up good, your skin is back to normal, everything is fantastic. They did that on purpose. They stuck that into the show that was doing so well and the fans were loving and still love. The show was doing amazing. It brought fans together. So Disney tried to utilize that, and I'm willing to bet, it's never been said as far as I know, but I'm willing to bet that that was not written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. I'm willing to bet they were told to put that in there. And the reason being is the timing of that episode. It literally aired right before the opening of Rise of Skywalker. Now we see Grogu, or at the time was just called the Child, or Baby Yoda, as everybody kept calling him. They did that so that we experienced that ability, so that we would be more accepting of it in Rise of Skywalker. They forced it into The Mandalorian so that we would accept it when Rey did it. Well, I didn't really accept it in The Mandalorian, and I sure as hell did not accept it in Rise of Skywalker. You have this already overpowered character of Rey, and now she could just heal you? I mean, it's as dumb as The Last Jedi and them flying a ship through the enemy fleet at light speed to kill them all. It breaks the story. It breaks the story. If you could just launch a ship at light speed through the fleet of your enemies and win, why has that never been done before? And why did a human pilot, why did a living creature have to pilot? Why not set up a robot or a droid to just fly ships through all your enemies and be done with it? Why didn't the rebels take a cruiser, pilot it by a droid, and fly it through the Death Star? Why? Because that makes it too easy. And there's no struggle, and there's no concern of whether or not the good guys can win. You just do this power move and you're good. You're good. Instant win. It breaks the story. Same thing with force healing. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to touch you now and you're going to be all better. Why weren't Jedi doing that all the time? Why not? It's because it breaks the story. It's a video game power that does not work in film. You can't do that. It makes no sense. Okay. I wanted to love these movies. I wanted to love them. I really, really did. I really did. Everything just keeps breaking, you know? Look, you could bring back characters successfully. Darth Maul came back. He came back in the Clone Wars, and then we saw him in Rebels, and they explained it. He came back and it worked because they explained it. I know some people didn't like that Darth Maul was brought back. I love that he came back, but I love that he came back because they made it work. They made it make sense. And it worked well, in my opinion. So there's ways of doing these things. You can take extreme ideas and make them work as long as you do it right. I mean, look, we had The Force Awakens came out. It brought hope again. It brought excitement back to Star Wars. And even though the film was divided, it still had so much potential. We had The Last Jedi come out, and it nearly killed the entire franchise. That's how bad the divide was. I get there's people who really like this film, but they like it as a film. That's the thing. Anyone who ever argues how great this movie is, their points of argument are about filmmaking, not about Star Wars. That's the problem. Then there's Rise of Skywalker. I haven't even... This is still in the wrapper. I didn't even open it yet. I've seen it. I've seen the movie twice. And it was once in the theaters. Actually, no, 3 times. I saw it twice in the theater. And once on digital release. I'm big on completing my hard copy collection, so I had to buy it. So I have, but it's still in the wrapper. I haven't watched the disc yet. Rise of Skywalker rushed through every point, trying to shove as much nostalgia in it as they could, and it was very rushed. The movie should have been longer to try to develop these stories, but it just wasn't. And to suddenly say Rey is a Palpatine, and Palpatine is still alive, but it's because his ghost jumped into a clone of himself, and Snoke was a failed clone. We see vats of failed Snokes. I get it. Cloning is part of Star Wars. That's fine. You can have that. That's perfectly fine. And we've seen in Expanded Universe the idea of like Sith spirits leaving their old body because they're killed, and we've seen them become part of something else, whether they're in another being or they're almost trapped in a place. So I remember when the trailer of Rise of Skywalker came out, and it's revealed Palpatine is alive, but we also see the wreckage of the second Death Star. So my first thought was, oh man, the spirit of Palpatine is trapped in there. That's where he is. He's in the wreckage of the Death Star, and we see moments of our heroes going to that wreckage. I was like, this is where the movie's going to lead up to. Rey is going to have an encounter with Palpatine in the wreckage of the Death Star. But that didn't happen. Palpatine's on a planet we've never heard of before that has a map. You can get there very easily. There's some obstacles, but for the most part, here's your map. You can get there, even though we've never heard of it before, and no one has ever heard of it. But there's old books that talk about it, so it's really simple to get to where the bad guy's hiding. The encounter we get in the second Death Star wreckage is between Rey and Kylo Ren. Again, visually stunning, but one of the biggest things we all wanted to see was whether or not Ben would come back to the light. Would Ben Solo return to the light? He's done a lot of terrible things, but can he come back? Look, Vader did horrible things, but at the very end, he comes back to the light, and we accepted that. We all accepted that. So if done well, I was willing to accept Ben coming back to the light. And how does this happen? Well, Rey and Kylo have a major fight on top of the wreckage of the Death Star, and it's a really good fight. It goes really well, and Rey wins because Ben is distracted. Leia reaches out to him. She's using all of her energy to reach out to Ben and bring him back to the light, and reaches out to him via the Force. Similar to how Luke overstrained himself and died from it, Leia does the same thing. She overexerts herself using the Force, and she dies. I don't know, maybe that's not as bad as dying from a broken heart. I'm not saying the prequels are without their own mistakes, but hey, she uses the Force too hard and dies. Ben is distracted, and Rey runs him through with the lightsaber. Like, boom. Gets him. He's gonna die. But we've already established that Rey can heal, so she heals Ben. And I think the way they explain is that when you do that, you kind of give some of your life force to the person you're healing. So between Leia reaching out to Ben through the Force and Rey healing him, Kylo Ren is no more. Ben Solo is back. He throws his lightsaber away, and he's back. He's now Ben Solo. And this was one of the coolest parts of the movie, was that the way he is. He even has a Han Solo moment of his own. He does this kind of like, there's this moment where all these bad guys surround him, and he just kind of like does this little Han move. I was like, this is great. And that leads me into the other thing this film did with Force powers that I don't like it at all. There's nothing good about it, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. Apparently, the connection that Ben and Rey share means that they can physically pass objects to each other through the Force. They can be across the galaxy from each other, but through the Force, I can hand you something. You can take it, and you'll have that object. So we see Ben throw his red Kylo Ren lightsaber away. He has no lightsaber. He comes after Rey to try to help her, and gets into trouble with the Knights of Ren, which were completely wasted. I don't even want to go into that. That made me so angry that those characters were completely wasted. The Knights of Ren that were hyped up to be this major thing, and they were literally nothing. Ben is surrounded by them, and in the midst of Rey dealing with Palpatine, she takes her lightsaber, puts it behind her back so Palpatine can't see, and then when she brings her hand back, it's empty. It's empty. It's because she handed the lightsaber to Ben through the Force. Ben now has the lightsaber. I don't understand why that's an ability. I know there's a connection to the Force, but why push it that far? I think it's lazy writing. I think it's lazy to be able to just say, well, we get out of this situation because we can do this. It's the strangest thing that happens in that film, that ability. It happens multiple times in the movie. We see objects pass through the Force. We see Kylo Ren and Rey fight through the connection. They're in two completely different places, and they're fighting each other where the lightsabers are making contact through the Force. They're breaking objects around them. It's a mess. Again, movie-wise, it's cool looking. Story-wise, it's a mess. It all leads up to this big climax where you think all the good guys are finally going to lose. Palpatine is about to take over, and he's like shooting lightning everywhere. And the Resistance is like, this is it, we're all dead. And then finally, you find out a message they sent out earlier. People heard it, and just thousands of ships show up. This is the biggest fleet we've ever seen, ever. And something actually really cool happens here. Because you may say it's really cheesy, but I thought this was cool. At that point, the main Star Wars theme kicks in. Like what we hear during the opening crawl kicks in the middle of a scene in the movie. That's never happened before. And for this moment, this big uniting moment of all the good guys getting together to fight evil, it worked for me. That worked for me. Hearing that theme kick in, I was not expecting that at all. And to go with that visual, with Lando coming in with the Falcon, there's even the Ghost ship from Rebels. There's all these little Easter eggs everywhere in there. I'm sure I haven't seen them all. And that music kicking in, that John Williams score, that worked for me. Like I said before, there are things in these movies that are done well. It's just the problem is they don't all fit together. So the sequel trilogy is out there. It's part of Star Wars. It's something that should have been done far better. I think better writing would have gone a long way. I think if Disney would have been more open to listening to George Lucas and to the fans, and even just paying attention to what they even purchased. You have all this lore, all this history in novels and comics and video games, all this expanded universe that you could have pulled from, and to go with really none of it was a bad decision. It really hurt the franchise overall, and there's really no recovering from it, especially now. Some of the actors from the original trilogy have since passed. Carrie Fisher, losing her, we lost Princess Leia. I can't believe it. I mean, it's the fact that she's gone. She was 60, and she's gone. There's no going back and fixing that. Like, look, we've seen the power of CG. We saw, Grand Moff Tarkin return in Rebels. I mean, in Rogue One. But, that actor's long since dead. But the power of CG is there. It can be done. But it'll never be the same. They could do that and have Carrie Fisher's likeness. They could have Princess Leia and things and try to go back and fix this, but it's not the same, and it won't ever be. That's the saddest thing about all of this, is that Disney made such poor decisions that they can never recover from. There's no way to fix it. There's no way. And that's the saddest part of this whole thing. But there has been light. There's still light. We got The Mandalorian. That show is fantastic. It has its own set of things that some people don't like, but it's still one of the best things that we've gotten from Disney Star Wars. And then we have the Obi-Wan Kenobi show that's going to be coming. I can't wait for that. We saw the return of Ahsoka, and she's getting her own show. I mean, it's just... there's so many good things that are coming. Now, look, I'm well aware of the horrible things that are ruining things, and when it comes to real life, everything that happened to Gina Carano, that's I can't believe, jeez, Disney, why ruin everything? All the rumors of Pedro Pascal leaving the show. There's so much stuff that happens behind the scenes, and it's just, as a fan, I just want to be able to enjoy these films, these stories, these shows. I don't want to have all these politics involved. I don't want to worry about who somebody supports in politics. I want Star Wars. When I watch Star Wars, I want Star Wars. That's what I want. I think that's what every fan wants. I don't want all of this extra garbage that goes along with it. But it's happening. Either way, we still have The Mandalorian show, season 1 and 2, and it was done very well, in my opinion. I think the show was absolutely amazing and set up a lot of great things. I think the Obi-Wan Kenobi show is going to be fantastic. I think the Ahsoka show is going to be fantastic. And I can't wait to see these. we have a ways to go before they come out, but I am very much looking forward to them. The next movie that's going to happen is going to be about Rogue Squadron. That's so cool. I'm pretty sure it's going to take place during the time of the Resistance, not the Rebellion, but I still think it's going to be good. I mean, just imagine a Top Gun type film, except it's Star Wars. How cool is that? That's going to be awesome. So I can't wait for that. There's so much light, there's so much good. We still have things like this game I'm playing right now. Battlefront 2 has its own story. It went through hell when this game first came out. I've played it since the beginning, and it had its issues due to developers and things getting in the way of how the game should have been, but it has since been redeemed and is one of the best Star Wars games out there. It's a ton of fun, and I highly recommend this game to any Star Wars fan, to any video game fan, whether you like Star Wars or not. Play this game. This game is a lot of fun. All the different characters you can play as, all of the different settings, the planets you go to, the different areas you can play in. It's really well done, and I enjoy this game a lot. We're always going to have the original trilogy. We're always going to have the prequels. We will always have the stories we grew up with. There's nothing that will take those away. So, as sad, as angry, or even as happy as the sequel trilogy makes anyone, we will always have the movies that brought us all together as fans in the first place. It all started in 1977. It started with George Lucas. We were introduced to characters that we will always love. We got Princess Leia, we got Han Solo, we got Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then even the characters we didn't see in those films that were talked about, we got to see them in the prequels. How cool is that? I will always love Star Wars. I will always love the franchise. And I will give anything that is Star Wars a chance. Even now, with what we were given with the sequel trilogy, I will give it a chance. I will rewatch these sequels. I've rewatched Force Awakens many times. I really do like that movie. Even though I know where it all leads, it's still fun to watch that one. To remember how I felt when it first came out. I'll even rewatch The Last Jedi. I'll rewatch Rise of Skywalker. At this point, that's my son's Star Wars. He's 8, and he loves these movies. These are the movies he got to see in the theaters. This is his Star Wars trilogy. And I know when he gets older, we'll have more conversations about them and talk about how we feel about these films. But for now, he's really loving them. He loves the characters. He loves Star Wars, and this is his Star Wars. It's because he got to go to the movie theater to see these movies. This was his theatrical experience. So I'm never going to try to stop him from watching the movies, no matter how I feel about them. This is his stories. But us fans that have been around for a long time and have seen the other movies, we will always have what we grew up with, and there's nothing that can take that away. Let me see, we got a comment. Like, I was excited to see Rey in The Force Awakens because I was like, okay, a main female role in a Star Wars film. But when I saw the movie, I hated her. See, that's fine. We're not going to always like the characters that we're presented with, no matter what the movie is. And I wanted to really, really love her character. And I was very excited for her character. But what we were given... See, that was the thing. Like, Force Awakens still had all that potential. We could have had more with her character. It wasn't really until The Last Jedi that really sealed everything. It's the last nail in the coffin with her character. There was still places they could have gone with her character and improved on it. Yes, she was way overpowered in Force Awakens. That whole mind trick scene, look, it's a funny scene. But it didn't make sense. You're telling me you're that powerful at that moment? You just found out that the Force is real? And you just found out that Luke Skywalker is real? And now you could do a Jedi mind trick with no training? A Jedi mind trick is something that takes so much focus and ability. It's been shown that way in Expanded Universe. There was even an episode of the Clone Wars where it took multiple Jedi to all be using the Force at the same time, focused on another character who was very intelligent, very smart, and they had to try to overpower them by teaming up. And you're telling me this person who has never used abilities before ever can now do that? It's bad writing. It's bad writing. It's like people who knew what Star Wars, knew Star Wars existed, but never really knew what Star Wars was. They were given control of the future of Star Wars, and that's where it all went downhill. You can't just overpower a character for no reason, just because that's your face of the franchise now. You can't do that. You know what? I'll compare it to wrestling, WWE. If you go and you want a certain wrestler to be your new face of the franchise for however long you want, if the fans don't agree with you, if the fans don't like that character, no matter how much you try to shove that character down their throat, they're not going to be on board with you. Roman Reigns was a perfect example. WWE tried to push that character so much, and I feel bad for the guy. I really do. I feel so bad for him. He would come out, and it's supposed to be this amazing thing that Roman Reigns is here, and he's going to do whatever, but fans are literally booing him. To the point where, I don't know if this is true, but I heard rumors that audience audio tracks were pushed into some of the broadcasts to make it sound like they were actually cheering him sometimes, but you couldn't fully overpower the negativity coming from the fans. They didn't want this character. They thought he was poorly written. They thought he was poorly done and not worthy of being the new face of the franchise. That's how powerful fandom is. You can't fight that. You're supposed to be... You want your fans to be happy of anything that you do putting out there. You don't want them to be mad at you for the characters you have here. If it didn't work, try to make it better or move on. I really wanted to like all these characters, and I do like the characters. I just feel bad for the characters because they weren't utilized well at all. And that's not fair to the actors that portrayed them. Daisy Ridley is a great actor. John Boyega is a great actor. Oscar, he's a great actor. They're all excellent. They have so much potential, and it was wasted on these poorly written characters. But again, we will always have the original trilogy. We will always have the prequels. And for those who like Expanded Universe, we will always have the Clone Wars. We will always have the Rebels. We will always have the comics. We will always have the novels from the past. That can never be taken away from us. So we'll always have that, and that's something that, as fans, we can always get behind. We can always unite, and we can have just amazingly good times watching these things together, or talking about them, having discussions about what could have been, or where these characters could go. I think that's the biggest thing about Star Wars, is that there's always something that the fans can unite about. Case in point, Luke Skywalker. his return in The Mandalorian, I was in tears. That's how happy I was when he came back. I mean, it was this Luke Skywalker right here that came back, and it was the happiest moment in Star Wars in a long time. And every fan was able to get behind that. Every single fan was on board. It was one of the best things that could have happened, and it happened at the right time. And I don't know if we'll have that again. I'm worried. I don't think we're going to have the same level of excitement for Star Wars as we used to have. That moment of Luke coming back in The Mandalorian was the closest I think we're ever going to get. But anytime I just want to feel the magic of Star Wars again, I can pop in any of the movies that I want. 1 through 6. Even Rogue One. Rogue One I really enjoyed. I even liked Solo. So I can watch, I have so many options. I can watch any episode of the Clone Wars. I can watch any episode of Rebels that I want. I can go back anytime that I want. And that's what every fan can do. And we can play games like this. You can play them online with each other. You can play story-driven games. You can play Jedi Fallen Order, fantastic game. You can play Jedi Outcast, an amazing game. You could go back all the way to Shadows of the Empire, fantastic game. And you can experience those stories and feel the joy and magic and excitement of Star Wars anytime that you want. Guys, I hope you enjoyed my video here. It's a long rant. I know this went on for quite a while now, but I didn't think I was going to go that far into it. I just felt like talking about my feelings and my thoughts about the sequel trilogy, especially with everything that's going on in the news involving Star Wars now. I don't know. I guess I needed to vent, so I appreciate you guys giving me the chance to do that. I think having this platform is awesome. I think there's a lot of positivity that can happen on things like YouTube, where fans can talk about their feelings on any franchise, whether it's Star Wars or Marvel or DC or Harry Potter or whatever it may be, whatever everybody likes and can unite and talk about. There can always be positive conversations that can happen, even about the most negative things that we don't like about the franchise. We can still have constructive conversations about it. And again, we can always go back to the movies that brought us all together in the first place. Guys, I appreciate you joining me here in the Mac Cave, even though we're not in the cave right now. I just wanted to use the 4K TV and see how the broadcast worked on it. So, guys, thank you for joining me on Mac Cave Gaming, and I will see you guys on the next video.